registering to vote. So we truly are excited about our efforts that we have made with our students here at Cal State San Bernardino. We have approximately over 500 students currently registered with to register to vote. So we are truly excited about that. Well, today it gives me the opportunity to introduce our guest speakers for this event this morning. We are so excited to have our guest today. His name is Bob Page. He's from the Register of Voters in San Bernardino. Mr. Page has been with the County of San Bernardino for almost 20 years. And during his tenure, he has served as Chief of Staff to the 2nd and 5th District in addition to serving as a Principal Management Analyst and Legislative Affairs Director. Mr. Page was named the Registrar of Voters in 2019. Prior to his role with the county, Mr. Page was known for his exceptional reporting with the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin and Torrance Daily Breeze. Mr. Page is a graduate of Dartmouth College and USC. Also joining Mr. Page today, we have from the San Bernardino County Register of Voters, which is Kelly Mbrani, also Melissa Eichman. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Kelly Mbrani. Ms. Kelly?
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. We are very, very happy to be here. I am a Cal State San Bernardino alum, so it's fantastic to be back with all of my Coyotes. We have a presentation prepared for you today, which Bob is going to provide. And then we want to make sure that we leave room at the end for questions. So I will go ahead and pull up the screen now and we'll let Bob get started.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Jeanette, for this opportunity to share some information about the 2020 presidential election, which voters started voting in this election last Monday, October 5th. I want to provide you with a kind of a brief overview of this election, how it differs from prior because of COVID-19, so what's been changed throughout the state and how those changes have been implemented in our county. Then I also want to, in case anyone on this presentation watching would like to vote in person, share with you what we're doing to keep our voters as well as our poll workers safe during COVID-19 and how we are ensuring the security of this election and your ballots, and a little bit more about our voter education campaign. So because of the COVID-19 pandemic, starting in March as we were still finishing up the primary election, the state started meeting with county elections officials and voter rights advocates to start discussing how we could conduct a safe and secure election for the presidential general election. As a result, the governor issued a couple of executive orders earlier this year, and then the state legislature codified a lot of the requirements in those orders in 2 pieces of legislation that the governor signed up until, I think the last one was signed in August. So these are high level, some of the mandates that were put into place. The first is that the county is required to mail a ballot to all active registered voters, not just those who specifically request a mail ballot. But we also must still provide in-person voting opportunities. So we must have at least 1 polling place in our county for every 10,000 voters. And we must also have at least 1 mail ballot drop box for every 15,000 voters in our county. Another thing that we're required to do for this election is to provide our voters with an opportunity to track their mail ballot in the process and get automated notifications. And we must carry out a voter education campaign. So in terms of the county, while it will be different for some voters to receive a mail ballot at home if they've traditionally voted at a polling place, all of the voters' options for how to cast a voted mail ballot still remain the same in our county. All the voters can, if they choose, they can return it to our office by mail. We provide a prepaid postage return envelope with your ballot. Or you may just drop off that envelope with your ballot at one of our ballot drop-off locations, which we've traditionally had, one of our early vote sites, which we've always had, as well as one of our polling places. For vote by mail, as I mentioned, we mailed out about 1.1 million ballots to voters last week. And if you're not currently registered and you want to receive a mail ballot for this election, you must be registered by Monday, October 19th. There are still other opportunities to register after that point, but at that point, if you aren't registered by the 19th, then you have to come in. We cannot mail a ballot to someone who is registered after the 19th. The other thing is that if you do want to return your ballot through the mail, you must remember that the return envelope must be postmarked on or before November 3rd in order to be eligibly counted. The post office has additional days to get that to us, but it must be postmarked by the 3rd, and we must receive it from the post office with that postmark by November 20th. We did decide, in terms of providing voters with an opportunity to track their ballot, we did provide or enroll in the Secretary of State's tracking system that's called Where's My Ballot? And that would allow, now that we've signed up for that, all of our voters are allowed to then sign up themselves. It's not an automatic thing where you get a notification. You do have to go to the Secretary of State's website for Where's My Ballot and sign up, choose whether you want to receive your notifications by email, by phone, or by text message. And then once you're signed up, you will receive notifications through the process. So those voters who were signed up prior to last week received a notification Monday morning the 5th, letting them know that their ballot had been mailed. Once they return their voted ballot to us and we start processing it, they will receive a notification letting them know that we received their ballot. And then ultimately, once we process their mail ballot and determine it's eligible to be counted, they will receive a notification that their ballot has been counted. The other thing that we do mail out to all voters in our county is a county voter information guide. Voters get a state information guide, which contains information about the state propositions. They also receive a county voter information guide, which includes information about the local measures that they're eligible to vote on, as well as they receive a sample ballot of all the contests they're eligible to vote in. And if any of the candidates in those contests have paid to have a statement in the voter information guide, they will receive candidate statements in their guide as well as a lot of information about how to vote, how to sign up to be a poll worker, and other different things are in that guide. This year we did mail out a second supplemental voter information guide from the county, and the reason that is that there are 2 local measures that are countywide. Every voter in the county will be voting on them. They are measures J and K, and they seek to either revise or amend the county government's charter in terms of how the rules for the county's governance and how it operates. The Board of Supervisors wanted voters to have the full information about both of those proposals, one that was proposed by the Board of Supervisors, one that was a result of an initiative petition process. And in order to print all the pages needed for those 2 measures, it would take up 72 pages in the guide, and adding 72 pages to the existing 100 and so pages that are in each guide was just going to make those books too thick, create manual processing for producing them, delay the delivery of those, and we wanted to make sure that those were mailed ahead of the ballots when they went out on the 5th. So we actually moved measures J and K into supplemental guide, and we're able as a result to save about $300,000 in the process and get all of the voter information guides mailed between September 22nd and October 2nd. So they were all in the mail before the ballots. The last thing I did want to let you know about vote by mail is that while we're mailing a ballot to every voter, and it's likely that will mean that we will receive more mail ballots than we have in the past to process, we do have the capacity to handle an increased number of vote by mail ballots. In the March primary, 70% of our voters requested a mail ballot. But ahead of that election in the primary, the county did replace our voting system and all of our equipment that processes mail ballots and our workstations where people check the signatures on those return envelopes before we open them. We doubled our capacity ahead of the March primary to be able to process mail ballots. So we believe we are able to process more mail ballots for this election. The other option that voters have is they can vote their mail ballot at home, mark it, put it in the envelope, seal it, sign it, and date it. And rather than putting it in the U.S. Postal Service mailing, they can drop it off at one of 72 official mail ballot drop boxes the county has put up around all over the county. Our minimum requirement was to have 70, so we did meet that minimum requirement. Those drop boxes have been accepting ballots since last Tuesday, October 6th. And they will remain open for voting until 8 p.m. on November 3rd. So if a voter misses a mail pickup at their local postal box that on November 3rd but still want to get it in, they can come to one of these drop boxes and drop it in there. It'll be open and unlocked until 8. The locations of all of our official mail ballot drop boxes can be found on our website by using our mail ballot drop-off locations mapping tool. You can either use your GPS location or type in an address and find all of the drop-off locations within a certain mile radius. Then if you choose one that you want to go to, you can then click on driving instructions to that location. Additionally, we have always offered early voting. By law, we're required to allow early voting at our office starting 29 days before the election. So we actually had, while October 5th was a day that we mailed all ballots out, we actually served about 250 voters who didn't want to wait to receive their ballot in the mail, and they wanted to vote the first day. So they came into our office and did so. But additionally, we always open up additional locations throughout the county to provide a higher level of service for early voting. So the week of October 26th through October 30th, that Monday through Friday, we will have 5 additional locations that are open from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. each day. And those are going to be located in Ontario, Victorville, Apple Valley, Joshua Tree, and a second location here in San Bernardino. Those locations, their hours, and addresses were all printed inside the County Voter Information Guide, but they're also available on our website, which is www.sbcountyelections.com. Finally, you can also, if you want to drop off your voted mail ballot at a polling place, you can do that without actually having to wait in line to check in. You can just drop it in a ballot box there. But the other thing is you can, if you prefer to vote a polls ballot and vote at the polling place, you can do that as well. So we were required by the state to have at least 105 polling places throughout the county. We were successful in securing 210, which is double the requirement. And one of those 210 is a new location actually on the Cal State campus in a PE gym there, which is a great facility. It will give us a lot of room to have voting with social distancing. But because the 210 that we have will be less than the 396 polling places we had in the March primary, we are required then to improve our access to our polling places by having them open for 4 days. So the day after our early vote sites close on the 30th, then on the Saturday, the 31st of October, all these 210 polling places will open up. They will be open Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday straight through. Saturday through Monday, they'll be open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., the same hours we have for early vote sites. And then on Tuesday, November 3rd, they will be open the traditional Election Day polling place hours of 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. Every voter in our county is assigned to their neighborhood polling place based on their residential address. We do print for each voter when they receive their county voter information guide. On the back cover will be their polling place assignment. If they misplace their guide, they can go to our website and use our Find My Polling Place tool, input their residential address, and they'll find what their assigned polling place is with a link for driving directions, as well as a link for an electronic version of their voter information guide if they want to look at that. So if you are interested in voting in person or coming in to receive services at our office, our early vote sites, or our polling places, I do want to assure you that we are keeping your health and safety in mind, as well as those that work in our office and work in our polling places. So we have acquired a great amount of personal protective equipment for this election, enough to provide to all of our election workers as well as voters if they come in without PPE. So our election workers, our poll workers will be wearing face masks as well as plastic face shields over those. They will be given the option of wearing gloves, but because the key thing regarding gloves and your hands is to keep them clean, we're providing a lot of hand sanitizer in our locations as well as cleaning supplies and wipes. Our election workers are being trained to wipe down and sterilize high-touch surfaces throughout the day. They've also been trained to implement social distancing guidance at our voting locations. So we've printed out thousands of floor stickers for them to put out so that people waiting in line to check in are standing 6 feet apart. They've been trained to socially distance the check-in tables and the voting booths. So if you have a assigned polling place that is the same one we used in March, what you should expect is that there will be fewer stations in that location because of social distancing. Finally, as I said, we did provide purchase enough PPE to provide to voters. So if a voter walks into a polling place and is not wearing a face covering, we will offer them a disposable face mask. But I will point out that if a voter refuses to wear a face mask, we still have to allow them to vote. And so what we will do to protect the other voters who are present at that time is that we will offer those voters a plastic face shield to wear to give them an added level of protection while somebody is in the room not wearing any face covering at all. Now, in terms of security of the election and the ballot, we typically get asked three different kinds of questions about security of the election. The first is about cybersecurity. So what I can tell you is that we take cybersecurity and the protections of our systems very seriously. It's an ongoing process. In the last 3 years, we've invited either a state or a federal agency in to assess our systems, try to hack into our systems, and then they'll make recommendations about how we can strengthen our protections, and we implement those. I obviously can't share what any of those recommendations were because that would then make our protections less valuable. But what I can tell you is that we do annual training for all of our staff on cybersecurity, which includes some basics such as not opening emails from people that they're not expecting them from, not clicking on certain attachments and being caught up in some sort of phishing type of scam. So we provide that training. Additionally, I will tell you that state law prohibits us from having our ballot scanners and voting system that counts and tabulates and adds up the votes to be connected to the internet. So our stuff is not connected to the internet. But additionally, on top of that, we don't even connect it to the county's wide area network or the county's internal network. So that equipment, those servers, that software is all in a couple of rooms in our office. They're air-gapped from the outside. And not anybody can walk into those rooms. Those rooms have card key security restrictions on them, so only certain people are allowed in and out of those rooms. So it would be very difficult for somebody to access our equipment where we count votes and modify that in some way. But if for some reason somebody was able to get in and do something, we always have a paper backup. In the state of California, voting must happen on paper. There is no voting machine that electronically stores a vote. Even our accessible ballot marking devices in polling places that help people with disabilities to mark a ballot still print a ballot. Everything's on a paper. So that's the measures we take regarding cybersecurity. Additionally, because in the past when we had mail ballot drop boxes, they were boxes that we placed in city clerk's offices and in county library branches, and they were staffed. They sat on a counter. We shifted for this election to having ballot boxes outside because we had to make a decision about our approach at the time that all county offices were closed for public access. City offices, county libraries were all closed for public. And so we wanted to make sure that voters still had adequate access to be able to drop off a ballot. And so we purchased outdoor secure ballot boxes. What I can tell you about the security of these ballot boxes is that they are made of 18-gauge steel. They weigh just under 200 pounds. They're not something somebody could walk up and pick up and carry off. But to also protect against anybody coming and with equipment and trying to remove them, they are anchored to the concrete pad that they sit on. And those anchor bolts are actually inside the box themselves. They cannot be accessed from outside. And each box has two separately keyed locks on them, unique to each box, to be able to actually open the door to retrieve the ballots and to access those bolts. Additionally, the ballot deposit slot, if any of you have used one of these yet, you will find that when you put your ballot envelope in there, it really only fits the width of an envelope. It wouldn't even, I know when I did mine, I tried to see if I could even get my finger into the slot, and my fingers were too fat to get through the deposit slot. The other thing about the deposit slots is they are angled up, so that when voters push their ballots in, it doesn't just automatically drop in. They have to push it over the ridge there. And that's done so that somebody can't pour liquid into the box and damage the ballot in some way that way. Finally, we have worked with a number of public partners for locating these boxes, and we have asked them to put them in high visible places that people can find, but that they also can be watched. So we have, for instance, a ballot box on the campus at Cal State that's not too far from the entry point where the guard shack is, so that an eye can be kept on that. And we've asked our partners that if they find that the boxes have been defaced or damaged in any way, to call us right away so we can address that. Finally, in terms of the security of the ballots in them, we are required by the state to pick them up on a regular schedule and pick up those ballots. Between now and October 23rd, we are required to retrieve ballots in each box at least every 96 hours. And after October 23rd, we're required to pick them up until Election Day, November 3rd, every 48 hours. We will be monitoring the use of these boxes and potentially, if warranted, increase the frequency, but that's the minimum that we have to do by state law. Finally, we do get questions about the safety of voting in person at polling places or early vote sites, and wanting to know, voters wanting to know what we're going to do to protect them against intimidation or other issues that might come up in this election. So we do have traditionally and will have continued to train our poll workers on good customer service, de-escalation techniques, really focusing on helping a voter vote and not getting into heated discussions about political issues with them. It's about making sure we get people the opportunity to vote, not about arguing politics. So we provide that training to them. We also have increased that de-escalation training this year, coordinating with the Sheriff's Department. They're helping us expand that training for our polling place supervisors and assistant supervisors. And finally, we do train our poll workers that if somebody you're not able to de-escalate a situation, to call us, and if the situation poses an immediate danger to everybody present, that they are to call 911. And we have been coordinating with the Sheriff's Department and with police departments so that they know. We provide them the locations of all of our polling places, all of our drop boxes, and all of our early vote sites so that they can respond quickly and know where we are in case there is a 911 call. So our voter education campaign, our main message here is that this is your ballot, and we want you to remember to vote safe and to vote early. And the reason that we use these words is that while we're mailing a ballot to everybody, we're not dictating that the voter has to use the mail to return it, that they still have all their options. They choose what is the safest and most secure way of casting their ballot. And we just need to make sure that they understand all the different ways we're making every option available to them safe. And finally, we are encouraging voters to vote early. The presidential general election is the election that receives the most voter turnout, and it's not uncommon in presidential elections for there to be lines at our polling places and long waits up to an hour or two to be able to vote. We'd like to avoid that as best as possible. There's a number of opportunities for voters to vote ahead of November 3rd, and so we want them to take advantage of that, whether that's returning their ballot by the mail or dropping it off at a location, or if they do want to vote in person at a polling place and vote a poll's ballot, we do encourage them to come in one of the first 3 days it's open and not wait until Tuesday, November 3rd. As I said, the voting process at the polling places will take longer than usual because of social distancing and cleaning protocols, and we just don't want to, we'd like to avoid having large groups of people congregated and spending long amount of time together during this pandemic. So that's what our message is. We are relying heavily on these kind of presentations to the community to get the word out, and the reason is that UCR and Common Cause, a voter rights advocacy group, earlier this year did a survey of likely voters in this election, and one of the questions they asked voters was, what is the most trusted source of information about the election for you? And the most trusted source was not official elections mail from my office. It was actually information shared with them by community leaders that they already know, whether it's a leader of their church, a leader of an organization they belong to. That's who they most trust. And so we are really trying to empower groups such as local community groups and churches and college campuses to help us share this information with their network so that we can help get out the information about how this election is being conducted and what their opportunity to vote is. So we've conducted just under 40 of these presentations as of today. We have another couple dozen scheduled so far between now and next Saturday. But in addition to these presentations, we're also doing some more traditional paid advertising in newspapers and radio and billboards, and doing social media. We put together some animated videos that we're pushing out on social media and seeking some public service announcements as well as just doing the best job we can to educate the local media so that they're writing articles and pieces that provide good information to voters. To help community organizations to help us spread the word, we have put together a communications toolkit for them, which is available on our website, and it contains an infographic with some key information about the election. It includes answers to frequently asked questions. There are sample social media posts and newsletter articles that can be used. We've put together 3 animated videos that can be shared about registering to vote or how to vote. We also have social media graphics that people can share and use when they post on social media. Finally, we do provide this information in 8 required languages in our county per state law. So here's some examples of some of the things as Kelly sorts through that. These are the social media graphics that we're offering in our community champions toolkit. This is the infographic. So as I said, we're really relying heavily on community groups to help us get the word out, to share information with your network, but also to share it with your family and friends and colleagues. Obviously, as we're all on social media from time to time, we see misinformation that's out there. Anything you can do to help us correct that message or to let us know about it so that we or the Secretary of State can correct that misinformation, we appreciate that assistance. The final thing I did want to say is this week we are still trying to recruit some extra help for the election. So the County Human Resources Department has a job announcement up on their jobs website, which is www.sbcounty.gov/jobs. And there's an announcement for a general election worker position that pays just under $16 an hour. And we have a number of different responsibilities these people will be plugged into, from helping us answer the phones, to helping us count ballots, to helping us deliver equipment and supplies to polling places. And so these jobs will be available and for work that goes through next week all the way through when we certify the election on December 1st. Finally, this presentation, we will provide it to the university so it can be shared with the students and staff. And this last page has links to some important resources, whether it's our website, our main phone voter hotline information phone number, or our main email address for input, sending us questions and input. Also links to the governor's executive orders and to bills that were passed this summer that affect how we conduct this election. A link to the Secretary of State's Where's My Ballot ballot tracking system so that you can sign up for that. Additionally, a link to a tool we have on our website called My Elections Gateway. We definitely encourage anybody who has moved since the last time they've voted to go onto My Elections Gateway and double check what address we have for you to make sure it's current. And if it's not, then to quickly address that. If you need to update your address right now, between now and October 19th, you can do that by re-registering on the Secretary of State's website. There's also a link to that registration portal on our website. Or if it's an internal move in the county, we do have a form on our website you can fill out and sign and get to us. And then after the 19th, you can use that address change form either by getting it to us or coming to one of our locations, and we'll have supplies of those for people to update their address and make sure they're voting in the right contest. So at this point, I am available to answer any questions, and I know that was a lot of information to provide you in about 25 minutes. So any questions, I'm happy to stay and answer those.
Thank you so much, Mr. Page, for all of your insight and educating us on the voter essentials. We truly appreciate you. But we do have a question.
Sure.
One of our students asked, with all the false voter drop box that we're hearing about in the news, how do we find official drop boxes?
Right. So there has been some news in the last week about some unofficial ballot boxes going up in other counties in the state. At this point, I have not received any reports of unofficial drop boxes in our county. But as I mentioned in the presentation, we do have 72 locations in our county where we have installed official mail ballot drop boxes. The presentation had a photo of what those boxes look like with our logo and information and instruction in 8 different languages. Which are all required by state that we have that information. And as I said, we do have a mapping tool on our website that voters can go to find the closest drop boxes to them. It allows them, once they go into that mail ballot drop-off location tool, they can use either their GPS on their phone to identify the closest locations, or they can type in an address and find the closest drop-off locations to those, to where that address. the list of locations, as I said, there's a way to link to how to get there with driving instructions, but it also will provide the address, the name of the facility, and the hours of operations. Most of our boxes are available 24/7, but I think we have at least 4 locations where the boxes are installed at a public facility behind gates of some sort, and so those gates are only open during business hours. So that tool will identify, okay, this drop box is open from 7 to 5 or 8 to 6 rather than a 20, and all the ones that are 24/7 will say that.
Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
that. We appreciate that. I have another question for you.
Sure.
For whatever reason your ballot is disqualified, do you get notified, and do you have an opportunity to revote?
It depends on what you definitely don't get a chance to revote. Once you cast a ballot, you've cast a ballot. But in terms of whether certain things can be corrected, some can, and the ones that can be corrected are signature issues. So if a voter fails to sign the return envelope on their mail ballot, or that we can't find enough similarities in the signature on the envelope to match it up to the signature we have on file. And we have access to the signatures that a voter may have given every time they registered or re-registered to vote, as well as we can access signatures provided to the DMV to look for similarities. So if somebody's signature varies over time, we should have a good record to be able to see those similarities. But if we find that either the signature's not there or we can't make a determination that the signatures match, we are required by law to notify the voter of that signature issue and give them until 2 days before we certify to correct it. We'll send them a form to fill out to correct that issue. And if they sign up for Where's My Ballot, they will also get a notification from that system letting them know that their mail ballot's been challenged and they need to contact our office. So this election, they'll have 2 ways to find out about that signature issue. But if the reason it was challenged was because it was postmarked on November 4th, or the voter forgot to put the ballot in the envelope, or say that there's 2 voters in one household, and rather than putting them in their own envelopes, they put both ballots into one envelope, those are going to be disqualified, and there's no way to correct that.
Thank you again. I keep putting myself on mute, so I apologize for the pause.
That's okay.
So what is in addition to that question, what is the date that is expected for the completion of the count of the vote?
So we are required to certify the presidential contest by December 1st. We get 28 days. I expect we will use all 28 days. That is it. Typically, given the size of our county and the number of voters we have, we typically use all the days we're allowed to complete it. So that canvass period from November 3rd until December 1st is used to process all the mail ballots that we receive on election day or after that are still eligible to be counted. We on all the ballots that are voted at polls, the actual polls ballots that aren't in envelopes, we are required by law to stay that night until we finish counting all of those. So any polls ballot, we are going to be working those on election night and counting them. And the last couple of statewide elections that we've conducted while I've been here, we've finished up about 4 in the morning, and then go home and get an hour of sleep and come back to work. So, so polls ballots, we are required that we cannot stop counting those until we're done counting the polls ballots that are not in envelopes. But so what will happen is those mail ballots that are brought back to us in envelopes, either on election day or delivered to us by the post office after, we'll start processing those after election day and work through those. And then once we get through the mail ballots, then we will process any provisional ballots and so on, because it has to be an order in which we do that. So I'm expecting we'll probably, and then we have to do certain audits, like we are required, because we run all of our ballots through electronic scanning machines to count the ballots. We are required to test the accuracy of those by hand counting at least 1% of all the ballots we receive. That we do a random selection of ballots from certain precincts. We have to make sure we have ballots from every precinct, all the different contests and certain number of precincts. And we have to hand count those to make sure the hand count of that 1% of the ballots matches the count that we got for each of those boxes on the machines. So we have to do that. We also test our machines before. We already had a public test, accuracy test of our equipment a couple weeks ago, and we have to do another public accuracy test of our equipment after we certify as well. So there's a number of different types of audits that we have to do during that canvass period as well. It's not just counting, but counting is a big part of that canvass period.
Amazing. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Amazing. I do have another question for you.
Sure.
Let's see. If someone's in the process of moving from one county to another, so for instance, moving from Riverside to San Bernardino, should they vote in the current county or register in the new county, such as San Bernardino?
Well, the answer to that question is, where does the voter consider their permanent residence? Mm-hmm. So if they are in the process of moving permanently into this county, then my preference would be is that they re-register at their new address here. But there are instances where somebody for a job or something may have to temporarily move to another location where they would maintain their prior address. But because that's still their permanent residence, they're working someplace else or doing something else like that. So if they are permanently moving from one county to the other, then the preference would be that they do register in the new county, and they can do that either by re-registering online between now and October 19th on Monday. After that point, then they would need to fill out one of the address change forms that we have on our website or at one of our voting locations, so that we could make sure that they were registered in our county.
Thank you so much again, Bob. We truly appreciate your time and your insight. I do have another question.
Yeah.
Voting this year may seem a bit different from the previous years due to the current pandemic. How is the county ensuring voters feeling comfortable to vote in person? I know that in your presentation that you did say that the poll workers are being trained in safety measures, but how can voters feel comfortable and not feel intimidated at the polls?
Right. So in terms of the health and safety, as I mentioned, we are taking precautions so that our election workers and poll workers are wearing all of the PPE and keeping the locations clean throughout the day, as well as social distancing, make sure people are social distancing. In terms of the intimidation, though, that's a different issue. The participants today listening in should understand that all of the Registrar voters processes are transparent and observable, whether that's people coming into our office while we're conducting this election and watching what we're doing, or going to a polling place and watching people vote. That is something we have to permit and allow. So, but what an observer can't do is intimidate the voters who are there. They can't stand over them while they're voting. They're still going to have to be standing a certain amount away. We will require observers to be wearing face coverings. That is not somebody who has a right to not wear one while they're there. And if the polling place gets crowded enough, we potentially would limit the number of observers who are there that are standing and watching the voting process occur, so that we still maintain social distancing. The other thing is that observers cannot challenge the eligibility of a voter in the polling place. That is only something that the polling place supervisor has the authority to do. So that's not something that's in their arsenal of rights of what they can do. They really just can watch the process. As I said, we are training our poll workers and our supervisors to provide good customer service, make sure that the atmosphere in the polling places stays safe and secure and free of intimidation. And if somebody is causing a problem, we give them the tools to deal with that or the ability to receive outside help. But what I can't do at a polling place is post security guards or law enforcement It is illegal in our state for somebody to be within 100 feet of a polling place with a firearm. And so we have to find a balance in protecting and making sure our environments are safe by providing good customer service, making sure our law enforcement is on standby if we need them and close by, but they can't actually be a show of force out there, because in some ways, then there would be certain voters who would be intimidated by that, by seeing a sheriff's deputy standing out in front of their polling place. So that's not something that we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that as well. Also, wanted to ask you a question. You had mentioned again about health and safety guidelines that the poll workers will be trained under. Now, will the voters be having their temperatures checked prior to going into the building? No,
we can't do that either. That would be equivalent to charging a poll tax. I mean, I can't turn a voter away. I have to provide them access and their ability to exercise their right to vote. Obviously, our recommendation to voters who may have symptoms and may be feeling sick is to use one of the other options for voting without without human contact. But otherwise, if somebody comes in, they let us know that they're sick, we can offer them some additional PPE, a face covering or something. But I can't be taking voters' temperatures or I had some polling places we used in the past that were only willing to let me use them again if each voter signed a waiver saying they wouldn't hold the property responsible if they caught COVID. And I said, I can't do that. So, we can't put those kind of limitations on people's ability to vote. I can't require voters to wear a face mask. I can't require them to have their temperature checked. I have to give them access.
Thank you. We appreciate that as well. Just a few more questions for you.
Sure.
Let's see. How are you collaborating with neighboring registrar voters or the California State, the Secretary of State to ensure accurate and efficient election results?
So we meet weekly actually with other counties and the Secretary of State to talk about the administration of this election. And in terms of accurate results throughout the state, each county is required to provide our results regularly to the Secretary of State. So if there are contests, say a state assembly seat or state Senate seat that cross county boundaries, if you go to our website, you'll see the votes cast in our county in that contest. But if you want to see, and then if you know it's in another county, you'd have to go to that county's website. Or the easier thing is just go to the Secretary of State's election results website and look at the combined results for that contest. So, we meet regularly, we talk, we have a very strong association, and we've been meeting with the Secretary of State pretty regularly going back to mid-March, talking about this election and how we could ensure that it occurred safely and securely. The other thing I did want to, I remember my staff pointed out, I didn't give a full picture on the question about how to vote if you move between counties and you didn't provide your new information ahead of this Monday the 19th. So if it's between county, if it's an in-county move, if you're moving from one location to another within our county, you can use that address change form that I talked about. But if you're moving into our county from another county and telling us about it after October 19th, then you would have to come to one of our locations and re-register as a conditional voter registration, and you would receive a provisional ballot. We would then do the research on, before we opened your ballot and counted it, we would do the research about making sure you hadn't voted in the other county before we then opened up your provisional envelope and counted it. But I will say that through that conditional voter registration process and provisional ballots, we do find that more than 90% of provisional ballots do get counted. So it's a large percentage. Most of the provisional ballots that don't get counted are because the voter had already voted in the election, so we can't count the second one. Or in the past, what would happen is that we would have some voters who would try to register on the website the Secretary of State has after the 15-day close and then show up and vote, so we would give them a provisional. But what they can do now, because the polling places you can do conditional voter registration there, is we can now re-register them conditionally to make sure that that doesn't happen. But if you go back to 2018 and look at our rejections, that would be added into that, is that we didn't have conditional voter registration at our polling places in 2018, but now it's required by law that we offer that service at our office, at our early vote sites, and all of our polling places. So that's brought our number of provisional ballots or percentage of rejections of provisional ballots down from where they were before.
Thank you so much, Mr. Page. I appreciate that. And clarifying that as well. I have another question for you.
Sure.
It says, myself and several family members have received the Morello ballots for each individual. 2 per person at this point. How does this happen? And what happens if someone sends more than 1 ballot?
Okay, so this person is saying that each member of their family received 2 mail ballots.
Correct.
Okay. What most likely happens, and if the family lives all together, then this is probably likely the case, is after we ran the voter file for the first mailing on September, I think it was like September 9th or something like that, they may have updated their address, maybe moved and re-registered at a new address. And so when somebody re-registers or changes their address in some way, then we send a replacement ballot out. So they may have 2 ballots in their possession, but only one of them is currently active and can be voted. And if somebody tried to return 2, we would only count the first one that we received. The second one would because as we're getting people are voting either by receiving their vote by mail ballot or they're checking in at a polling place, we're automatically updating their registration record to show that they've participated in this election. So when another ballot comes through our ballot sorting machine, it gets kicked out and challenged and put in a separate pile to indicate that that person has already voted. Similarly, if somebody has sent a mail ballot in, say this week, and then shows up at a polling place on November 1st, our electronic roster will show that that person has already returned a mail ballot and that they've already voted. If the voter demands still to vote, then in that case, we would give that voter a provisional ballot and then do further research when we got back here to confirm whether that person had actually voted. We go back and look at the signature on the envelope for their mail ballot and see it and determine that we matched it, and then determine that their provisional ballot wouldn't count because they'd already voted. And in the case where people do vote twice, then we do refer all those cases to the district attorney's office for investigation and potential prosecution.
I just said, like, wow, that.
Yeah, because the Registrar of Voters is not a policing or regulatory agency. We're giving access and managing the process. But if we see evidence of something that's a violation of law, we refer that to the Secretary of State and to the district attorney's office for further review.
Thank you so much. That was some powerful information. I think we have an opportunity for maybe one more question as we move forward. If someone wanted to find out they said, where can I go and find out good and unbiased information about different measures and the candidates, different measures and about the candidates?
Well, in terms of just basic information about measures, the most unbiased thing is going to be to read the actual text of the measures. So if it's a local measure, the county information guide, there may be the full text of the measure in our guide. If there isn't, there'll be a reference to go to our website and go to our web pages for this election, click on the local measures page, and you'll be able to read all the information that the jurisdiction provided. But I can't specifically advocate for one other kind of source that doesn't include opinions, because obviously anybody else who's talking about it, whether it's an argument for or against that's published in our guide, the basics that they can do is they can look at the text of the measure, they can read the impartial analysis written by the legal counsel, whether it's county counsel, if it's a statewide proposition, then the attorney general writes the impartial analysis in the state guide. That's the basic place to get the basic information. Regarding candidates, the candidates are allowed to pay to publish statements about themselves and their qualifications in the county voter information guide, but obviously, it's coming from them. Our office would not be we would not be able to provide any kind of critique or grade about the candidates, about who's good and who's not. We just simply operate the process, make sure that we count the votes accurately and have transparency, but we're not backing any specific position or candidate.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Page. That's going to be it for our questions right now. But if you have any closing remarks for us, we would love for you to speak at this time.
Well, first, I want to thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and the students about this election and share this information, and just ask that everybody do their best to, vote early. Get that research done that they want to get done to make sure that they understand how they want to vote, but to make sure that they get that ballot back to us ahead of November 3rd so that we can get a better start on processing those ballots, as well as keep the crowds down at our polling places and keep people safe. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity. And if people didn't think of a question today and they think of one later, they can always contact our office either by calling our hotline at 909-387-8300 or by emailing us at communications@rov.sbcounty.gov.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Bob Page. We truly appreciate you. I have a ton of notes just by you answering all the questions and your wonderful presentation. We truly appreciate you taking out the time of your busy schedule to come and speak with us here at Cal State San Bernardino. And we also want to thank you, Kelly Ambriani, I think I got it, for coming as well and bringing your wonderful smile. And we thank you also, Melissa Eichmann, for joining us today. But most of all, I really want to thank you also, Cal State San Bernardino students, staff, and faculty for joining us today and showing up. I am truly, truly grateful to have all of you coming out to this event. So my final remarks is, if you have not registered to vote as of yet, please visit our ASI website and you will see Your Vote, Our Future, the ballot vote, and register there. Your Vote, Our Future. You can go to www.csusb.edu/ASI/Your Vote, Our Future. Get registered today and let your howl be heard. We truly, again, appreciate you coming to this event, and thank you again from the San Bernardino County of Register of Voters. We truly appreciate your time and all of your information that you have given us from the bottom of our hearts. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's see. And we will be ending our presentation at this time unless anyone else has anything to say. Ms. Kelly, do you have anything that you would like to say before we close out?
Oh gosh, yeah, I'll just echo what Bob said. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And please check out our website and be sure to take a look at those communication toolkits. We really need your help to get the word out. There's tons of social media posts and content that you can share, and we would really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and thank you again. Bye-bye now.